Hi, I'm Danielle. This is the orientation for Maple Ridge community. So every family that is interested in joining our K-12 or Forest School group should go through this entire orientation, which covers the community guidelines and just expectations over what to expect as far as what we believe in and how we function, and just some rules that might be a little bit different than what you do at home. So if you could download the community guidelines from the website, you can follow along through there, as well as some additional information that we'll share here. So first, a little bit about who we are. So our first and foremost function is to nurture positive communication. So we put that above academics. So academics just kind of naturally happen, but we want to make sure that we are fostering positive communication skills with the adults and the kids in our group, which will lead into any academic or career situation in the child's future. So positive communication skills help you to work in a community, help you to get jobs, and have a very positive relationship outlook for your future. So we are developing the self and learning how to interact as a community, especially with homeschoolers. You don't have that aspect of being around a large group of people. And in a lot of large group or public school functions, you aren't actually being nurtured with social skills. It's just kind of like whatever happens, everybody just kind of figures something out along the way, and sometimes that turns very negative. So we are coming together to learn those group social skills, but we are putting that positive communication and interaction at the top of our priority list at Maple Ridge. Then we are using an emergent child-centered curriculum. So this isn't a specific curriculum that we follow step by step. We're not focusing on checking off a certain set of skills every year. As of right now, this is a supplement, but even if this grows into something more than just a supplemental 1 or 2 times a week, we will still be using this format where we are using the interests and the skills that we are seeing from the individuals, and we are building projects based on that interest level and that skill level, and building upon that with each child where they are. So no matter where they are able to progress and learn based on their own abilities, and we like to add their interests in so that they are more likely to follow through with a project and to be engaged for long term. We are accepting all ages. The different groups are set up to cater to different social levels. So the interaction changes a little bit around the 6 to 7 age group, and that's why we split up the K-12 and then kind of like a preschool that's just focused on that forest school atmosphere. We break it up because of social interaction, not because of academics. So you'll see that a little bit, but other than that, we really are looking at all ages, kind of like a one-room school sort of approach where we are learning from each other based on the interaction between people of the same age and of the same gender, but also learning the roles that we are interacting with based on ages that are younger and older than us, which helps us to be integrated into a community, into a culture better. We are focusing on movement and sunshine, so outside interaction with the natural environment, and the sun is very, very important to current and future health. So this is placed on a very high priority in all of our groups. Our K-12 group meets for half of the time outside for free play, free exploration, and the forest school group is entirely outside. We have individual respect for daily needs, so nobody needs to raise their hand to use the bathroom. We understand that each individual is perfectly capable of knowing when they need a break, when they need a drink, when they need something to eat, or whenever they want to use the bathroom. No hall passes or anything like that. You don't need to get permission to follow your body's function as long as it is respectful of yourself and the people and the things around you. And we are also using an approach of project-based learning and forest schools. So we're using projects and the natural environment to build a very well-rounded, holistic community that our children can thrive in. We are located in Murraysville, West Virginia, so we might have options for forest school in other areas, or we might meet up in other areas, but the main facility is in Murraysville. This is just a residence, and really we are opening this up as a way to just share what we do in our home and in our homeschool environment with other people. So we are located on around 7 to 8 acres. This is mostly wooded. We have access to a wet weather creek. We can go to the Ohio River, though it's not directly on the property. There's also access to caves and ponds in the extended area beyond our main property, which is used in some of the situations depending on how the group is interacting with each other. We have a kitchen, a dining, a living room, and bathrooms available, and as well as many, many resources and books for researching and just leisurely reading, and many, many board games which provide a lot of educational interaction, and Wi-Fi is available as well. Those screens are only used for research type situations. We're not really using those as just a free resource to use whenever we want. So that's a little bit limited, just so that we can nurture more of an environment that is hands-on and personal. The outdoor space also includes a side yard, a little bit of play equipment, though it's not often used because we're usually in the woods when we are outside. We do have a garden space, a very small greenhouse, and a fire pit that is limited based on the community. We have a dog. It is on a leash when people come around us, though if it happens to get off the leash, it just runs away. So it doesn't really bother anybody, but we do keep that on a leash whenever we have visitors. We also have free-range chickens, though sometimes those are caged, but that's something to be aware of when you come onto the Maple Ridge location. We have a very, very steep driveway. It is gravel, and without all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, you cannot make it up the driveway. Sometimes it's difficult to have people understand just how steep this is. If you come up the driveway without all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, it typically tears up the gravel, which can be very costly to fix. And as a continuous Maple Ridge, if we want to continue this, we have to keep that in mind. So there's very limited space to park at the bottom of the hill, which sometimes is necessary depending on the weather. Especially in the snow, you cannot drive up the hill during the snow, but that's just something to keep in mind. We are a few miles south of the Belleville Dam and about 10 to 15 minute drive from Ravenswood, West Virginia, where there are parks and libraries, for people that kind of want to come from another area and they don't really want to stay while their child is joining us. They can go into town if they would like, and there's some places to explore there. All right, so K-12. It's important to remember that we have to have a minimum of six children enrolled in order to hold a session. So that's one of the first things to think about. They also need to be willingly able to follow established rules. So this, even though we say K to 12, it doesn't necessarily mean kindergarten or first grade. There's varying ages that start kindergarten, so we are looking for individuals that are willingly able to follow established rules to join our K-12 group. So this means that if they are asked to put their toys away, they don't say no. If they are asked to communicate their emotions and talk about a situation that might be going on, they don't say no. So we do work with the children, of course, to develop these skills, but that this willingly able to follow established rules, this kind of changes around ages 6 to 7, where prior to that, children are very individual and they might interact with other children, but that social interaction, that communication desire to work with others doesn't typically change, and it isn't really understood by children until they're around 6 to 7. So that's why we're looking for that specific aspect rather than just an age or a grade. So think about that with your child. This is also a drop-off, so we do encourage you to take this opportunity to do a hobby, have a job, go run some errands, have some free time for yourself. However, we also require that guardians volunteer on a rotating schedule. So you will be a part of the group and you will be interacting and helping out as an assistant to the leader, but we do encourage you to take that opportunity for yourself. There is space where you can stay and not directly participate, but and we'll cover that in a minute. Other than those requirements, we are a homeschool supplement. So we supplement your academics or however you approach your homeschool environment. This is a supplement. So we're not going to cover all aspects and we're not going to do portfolio reviews or anything like that, though we will be providing information and content that you can add into your portfolio and your resources for that year. We are a half outside in all relatively safe weather. So if we have very high winds, we will come inside. If it is downpour raining and it doesn't stop, we'll come inside. If we have thunder or lightning, of course, we will come inside. Otherwise, we are outside in the rain, we're outside in the heat and the cold. It's mostly about the appropriate clothing. The rest of the time, the other half of the time, we're project-based learning. So the children decide the projects that they want to do. This is different based on all ages. So you might like one particular project, but a younger age might only participate part of the time to their skill level. And an older age might be doing more of the research. They might be coordinating more of that project or journaling more of that project. So we can cover all ages by taking this project-based learning approach because it's really adaptable and more realistic to life. So you are if you have all ages of children or you've been around all ages before, you know that younger children might just need a little more support and older children might need to be explained more in depth or have different questions to reflect on their project that they do. Of course, again, freedom to take breaks as desired. You're also free to use the tools available respectfully. So as long as you are, quiet and respectful of the group that's doing the project, you don't necessarily have to participate in that project, or you might start a project and decide to just take a break from it for a while or stop halfway through. We will encourage you to continue the project. We'll ask you to reflect on how you're feeling that day in your journal or whatever it might be, but you get to decide on if you need a break or not. The reason that the children choose what they're going to do is because this gives them the opportunity to participate in something that they actually like doing, which means that they are more likely to stay engaged and less likely to go home and say, I don't want to do this. Why do I have to? And if there's a part where we say, okay, could you get out your journals and could you write this or answer these questions? If they don't want to participate in that part at that time, that's okay. We do ask that when you join Maple Ridge that you really think about your child's desire to actually be a part of this environment and really communicate with them what they're going to be experiencing, because this is not the type of environment where you just drop your kid off because it's available. This should really be something the child chooses to do, and then you kind of guide them into which option they're going to be in and encourage them to participate and think of the projects that would be really interesting to them and to speak up. So we want this to be fun and engaging for everyone, not just an option where a parent just drops the kid off because they can. Otherwise, we are going to be reflecting every day on whatever we did, whether that's a project or the forest school or we played a game. Well, we want to take that opportunity to think about what we did, maybe what we want to change in the future, because this is more realistic to what you would do as an adult. So that's really what we're trying to create. We're trying to create this environment that is more synonymous to what your child might experience in the real world. Okay, Forest School, so this is really geared towards the preschool group, the elementary group, but varying ages may want to participate just based on what they want to, how they want to interact. So if they don't want to do project-based learning and they don't want to really reflect a lot and nurture academics in that way, they just kind of want to explore around and be in nature, then the Forest School is the way to go. This is, again, we require a minimum of 6 to hold a session. This is around ages 4 to 6, and we can work with you. This is not set in stone. It really depends on the type of interaction your child desires. They should be out of diapers with only minimal assistance. And so even though an adult may decide to stay with their child, this is a drop-off, so a drop-off option for your preschooler. You can choose to stay, and that might change the diaper option for you. So I encourage you to communicate and just see if this is a good fit for your child. And then we also require guardian assistance rotation. So you'll be on a schedule. So even if you choose to drop your child off, you'll still be volunteering and participating on a rotating schedule throughout the year. Forest School is not learning about nature time. You do learn about nature time, but really you are learning about everything that you could learn in a normal school environment, like an indoor school environment. You just happen to be outside. So think of this more like a child-led classroom without walls. So that structured classroom, that indoor classroom, it tends to be less engaging than outside, and that's why we take everything outside. So we can still do projects outside, but that outdoor environment encourages self-exploration. It reduces the amount that a teacher needs to teach because the child comes up with all their own questions. They use their hands and their body, and then they discover things on their own. And that's really what this Forest Preschool or the Forest School environment is about. We're using that same emergent child-led curriculum. So we might be developing projects over the time period that we're together, but these are based off of the children's desires and how they're interacting with the environment. We are nurturing through play-based learning. So we always want the child to lead us first. As a volunteer, as a leader, a Forest School leader, we are not deciding where to take the children all the time. We're not saying, hey, look at this, hey, do this, what about this? Though we might encourage that a little bit, we really want to first step back and just watch the children and let them lead us. We're outside in all relatively safe weather, so if we happen to have a change in the weather that might not be safe, so if we hear thunder, if there is lightning, if the winds become high, we will either take a break at a shelter or like inside the house for a little bit if it looks like the weather's going to pass, or we may cancel. So we don't switch inside for the Forest School for the long term. We also do storytelling, reflection, and various projects that are, tend to be nature-based, or in some way they allow the child to integrate what they're doing in nature into whatever project we come up with based on their desires. So again, that reflection at the end of the day. We don't want to just have an activity and say, see ya, it's time to go. We want to take about 10 to 15 minutes at the end of every day and talk and discuss and reflect on what we've done, because that helps us to take it all in. So what you will be doing on your guardian assistance, your rotation schedule, this is dependent upon how many people are in the group. So depending on how many children, how many families, that will change maybe how many times you have to volunteer, because we're just going to be on a rotating schedule. For the K-12 group, we just will have one extra assistant at a time. For the Forest School group, we will have one extra assistant per every 5 children enrolled. And then if there are guardians that choose to stay, they choose to not use that drop-off option, then we can coordinate a difference in volunteer rotating schedule based on how many parents just want to be there the whole time. So if you are a parent that is deciding to not drop your child off, you're deciding to stay and join your child, not just use the social space, but you're actually wanting to participate in our forest school or our K-12 activities for the day, you are doing this with the understanding that you are encouraging parents to drop off their kids that choose to drop off their kids. So we're using this as a compromising. This is the very small aspect of cooperative learning that we are doing here, where the parents are saying, yes, I think that's really great that you're dropping your child off. I am more than happy to help with your child while they're here because I am choosing to stay. So we don't want to ever make a parent feel like they are wrong for not staying with their child, and vice versa. This is a space where we have that opportunity to maybe have a couple hours to our own where we may otherwise not, and also have that opportunity to join our kids in something that they might not be doing outside of MRC. We are doing very, very minimal socializing when you are actively assisting. So if you want to come to socialize, you want to stay and socialize, you will do that in our socializing space. That will be outside of the K-12 group and outside of the forest school group. We encourage you to do that as well, to have connections and get your own personal social needs met. We just don't want that to happen while we are supposed to be watching the kids and caring for the kids and nurturing the kids. So this MRC environment allows us both of those opportunities. It allows the children that social interaction and this learning space with other children. And it also allows the adults to have that space while the children are being nurtured and being watched. So it's very common in a lot of co-ops and even public school environments for everyone in that environment, the adults and the children, to need that social interaction, and you come together because this might be your only opportunity for that. But then nothing is set up to where the children are actually being watched, and then arguments tend to happen, or negative experiences often happen, or parents get stressed out, and noise levels can get a little crazy because the parents are over here talking and the kids are over there doing their thing. And so I've developed this environment to nurture both of those needs, and we just work together a little bit to make that happen. We are using close proximity nurturing. So we are not encouraging let them just figure it out. That's not what we want here. We are encouraging the assistants, the leaders. They are going to be close to the children, watching over communication and interaction to, number one, prevent negative confrontations from happening, but also to quickly interact if they do happen and nurture those communication skills between the kids. So saying, oh, is there a problem here? How can I help? Or saying something like, can you say how you feel and why you feel that way? And then maybe explain what you would like for the other person to do, versus just kind of going, oh, they'll figure it out. Oh, I better go get them. So we don't want to use that kind of an approach at MRC. We want to be very active because we are first and foremost nurturing positive communication skills. We are teaching that, and the only way to really effectively teach that is to do that actively in their social interaction. We are using dynamic risk assessment. So at the beginning of a time period that we're together, the leader will do a risk assessment where we go out, we check, make sure there aren't branches poking out, there aren't holes that people can fall into, or weather conditions that might affect the day. But we're also doing that in the moment. So we're constantly looking for places that might be slippery or a place where a child can fall off. We want to make this space as easily navigatable so that the child can just explore and learn, and maybe not have to worry about so many negative impacts while we're in this space together. Kids are going to have plenty of opportunities to learn how to fall and get bumps and bruises throughout their life. So if we can minimize that while we're at MRC, then we improve that positive experience that they have while they're here. As an assistant, you are going to be guiding other children, not just your own. And this also allows you to understand that other parents are going to be guiding your children, not just their own. So you will expect for people to work with your child if they have any sort of communication issues, and we will all be expecting other people to work with our child as well. So that's important going into this, that we understand that type of interaction is going to happen. And then proactive conflict prevention. So if we need to redirect activities or redirect social interaction, then we will do that first. If we need to step in and help somebody understand why it might hurt someone's feelings or why they might need to explain or ask or whatever, we use that first so that we can avoid as many negative confrontations as possible, and teach the children to set up positive environments to help themselves to avoid situations. So one very simple thing that we can remember is saying, I feel because I would like you to, and then talk together, compromise together about ways to prevent that issue from happening in the future. Illnesses are really important to remember that you spread illness by being sick. So if somebody is sick, they should stay home. You don't need to be interacting and doing academics or running around in the woods or anything like that when you're ill. You should be resting. So your child needs their energy to heal, and the best way to do that is to stay home. So think about if you're looking at your child, they have snot pouring down their nose and it's green, or it's not green, but they're coughing and whatever, they should probably stay home. So obvious cold when unmedicated, so medication doesn't stop the illness. Consistent uncontrolled sneezing or coughing or snot dripping, that's a reason to stay home. Conjunctivitis, lice, staph infections, throat infections, vomiting, and they must be fever-free for at least 24 hours prior to attending. And also remember that antibiotics do not prevent or heal viruses, so just being on an antibiotic doesn't mean that you should attend. Remember that it's important to remember that other people have other obligations that you might not be aware of. They're interacting with people, not only maybe large families where illnesses spread quickly, but they have a job, or they're interacting with pregnant women or little babies or large groups of people, or they have something to do that weekend and they don't want to feel bad doing it. So we can help to prevent illnesses from spreading by staying home when we really should be resting. Clothing requirements, these are for the adults and the children, not just the children. It's very important that everybody wears weather appropriate gear so that we can all be comfortable and so that our children can maximize their learning experience. In the cold weather, you should have a fitted thermal base layer plus an insulating layer, and then a weather-resistant top layer, which includes pants and top. You should have wool or other thermally insulated breathable socks, insulated gloves, and weather-resistant mittens, a thermal hat with ear coverage, and a balaclava or scarf for neck and face protection. You should also have high boots that are weather-resistant. For warm weather, we wear light-colored long sleeves and long pants. Yes, when it's warm. This protects against sun without having to add extra chemicals on the skin, and it also helps to protect against briars and ticks and mosquitoes and all sorts of other bugs. We wear a weather-resistant top layer, so pants and top, breathable socks, and weather-resistant high boots. So remember that there's no bad weather, only inappropriate clothing, and that is very, very true. Your clothing will make or break how your child experiences this time with MRC. They can have a really, really awful time when they're very uncomfortable because their clothes are inappropriate for the activity. And also keep in mind that it's more important to have the clothing available to them than it is to necessarily wear it all the time. There are going to be situations where it's okay to take those clothes off, but your child should understand that if they are asked to put the clothes on, that they need to wear the clothes because this is for their protection, and we are trying to minimize risks as much as possible. Gear requirements are very similar for both groups. You're going to have water, a wholesome snack, and lunch. So a wholesome snack, this is, a balanced, healthy fat, healthy carb, healthy protein. This maximizes energy and digestion. We want low sugar, no sugar, pure water to stay hydrated with, or maybe cucumber water, something like that. But we don't want a lot of like heavy drinks or sugary drinks or anything like that. The K-12 group needs a 5x7 blank journal for journaling, a 5x11 lined notebook for various writing activities, pencils, erasers, sharpener, colored pencils, straight edge ruler, scissors, and a camping mug, especially for cold weather, for different herbal teas and stuff, which we pass around whenever we are having a really cold day and we need to keep the children warm during our outside time. So these prep actions, bringing the appropriate gear, having the appropriate conditions for staying outside, that allows us to stay outside longer. Families, kids, whatever, they don't stay outside very long periods of time unless they're dressed appropriately all across the world. So these are really important. And then a change of weather appropriate clothing. The Forest School group will have the snack, the water, change of clothes, and then they can optionally bring anything else that they want. But it's important to remember that the kids will be carrying their own packs, so they should not be overloaded with a bunch of stuff. And I'm also going to encourage you to keep anything personal at home. So if you have a special toy or something that's you really, really like and you really don't want to share that, MRC is not the time to bring that with you. So you need to understand that other people might be interested in what you bring, and this is a time where we're exploring our outside environment, or we're exploring our projects that we're doing. And if we bring extra stuff, especially when we don't want others to interact with it, it can cause a lot of negative confrontation. So keep all of those personal items at home. Okay, so again, snacks and lunch. We are not an allergen-free facility. So we have gluten, we have nuts, inside and outside. That's something to be aware of. If your child has an allergen that is severe, or an allergy that is severe, then they can please let us know. And if we need to restrict those items from being brought in snacks and lunch, we can, but we cannot restrict them from the facility because this is our home, and there are foods that we eat that we choose to eat them in our house. So be aware that they may be present. Bring your own snacks and lunch and hydration. There is well water available, but you'll need to have your own things with you to eat and drink. Whole foods, balanced snacks. Remember that we need to provide mood balance and energy balance for the day. If your kids are eating a bunch of, kind of junk food and packaged foods that are unhealthy for them, then it's going to be hard for them to have the energy and the mood balance to interact with everybody in a positive way and continue through a day when you're outside for a couple hours. It demands a lot of energy. So be sure that they are being nourished well. We may provide, especially in the winter months, unsweetened or whole leaf stevia sweetened iced or hot herbal tea, and whole leaf stevia sweetened hot cocoa. And then otherwise, we have a leave no trace policy. So all trash with you, whether you're inside or outside, goes home with you unless it can be composted. If it's compostable, you may compost it here. Otherwise, take all of your trash home so that we don't overload our trash bins at our house. This goes for adults and children. If we have project trash, then we will dispose of it at the facility, but everything, food trash or anything like that, should go home with you or your child. So again, the community expectations, you have all of the same requirements in our environment as your children do. If your child has siblings that want to stay with you, they need to be in the social space, and they need to be with you at all times. We do not provide any materials, we don't slow down the pace, and we don't provide projects that are catered to anyone that is not enrolled in MRC. So keep that in mind. We are going to be using positive communication skills and approaches with each other. And then the social space. So this is just our living room, or it's the outside. You're welcome to use the same spaces. Just make sure that the people that are enrolled with MRC have first access to the toys, the blocks, the materials, the manipulatives, and the space before anyone outside of that enrollment. everybody that stays in the space must fill out a registration form, whether they are actually enrolled or not. We do not provide any of those materials to the kids, but we do need that for liability reasons. Please limit your screen use. You're welcome to connect to our Wi-Fi, but please be conscientious of what your interaction with screens are doing to the learning environment. So unless you're using it to research, please limit your screen use to outside of the learning space. And the kitchen is available, so if you need to warm up some food or anything like that, you may do that. Please just wash your dishes, clean up, tidy the space up, leave it as it was when you came, whenever you leave. Once again, the guidelines and rules at MRC may be different than what you do with your children at home or in other environments. These are based on rules that help nurture the type of environment that we are creating. The rules are used in almost every forest school across the world. So it's really easy to look at that forest school mentality and think that it's just kind of a free-for-all. It is not. So we are using these to help keep the space positive for the time that we're together, as well as for the future sustainability of the space, the rocks, the soil, the grass, the things that are there, the trees. We want to make sure that not only we can enjoy these as a family, but also that we can continue to host MRC at our home. So we use boundaries that we can see. A child must listen to those boundaries, be able to understand those boundaries, and we have, the assistants and the leaders there to help keep them within that space. But we do not just go on and on and on, even if you are used to doing that with your child. They will stay where the leaders can see them. We use personal protective equipment when using tools. So we may be using safety glasses, you may be using work gloves. So you will be using things and you will be using tools in their proper way. This, again, helps to balance our safety risks. Elimination is done at the facility, in the toilet, unless it is an absolute emergency. So if you have to pee, we don't just go behind a tree and pee unless we cannot make it to the toilet. If you have to eliminate outside, you take 100 large steps away from any used spaces and any water sources. This helps to decrease the amount of contamination within our water source and our play area, because these spaces are used for foraging. They go into well systems, and it's very important to follow these steps. Then you're going to dig a 6-inch hole, and then you do your business in that hole and then cover it up. There is no screaming for fun at MRC. So while that may be a way that your child expresses their joy or expresses themselves in whatever way, they will be asked to please use a different sound. We want to reserve screaming for an alarm system. So we will ask children to please use a different tone to express themselves. Climbing is only done with a leader present. So whether you're climbing rocks or you're climbing a tree, a leader must be there for spotting. We do not help the child climb the tree or climb the rock. We may verbally give them pointers, but we do not physically help them. So if they're struggling, it's something that they need to they need to develop their own physical ability, their own muscle strength and movement in order to do that. And we've seen many children go through that climbing process of being very frustrated because they could not climb this object like somebody else did, but then develop such a sense of joy and accomplishment when they, over the weeks, developed that ability. So it's really special to see, and we will work with them emotionally to work through that, but this is for their own personal benefit. For sticks and rocks, we do not run with sticks. Sticks are not used to hit each other. We can use sticks in a stationary position, but then the sticks need to be put down if we want to run. Rocks, you're welcome to throw rocks as long as they are not directed towards anyone, and they should never be larger than the size of the palm of your hand. Water, we do have a wet weather creek that is easily accessible. So in the warmer months, you're not going to have a lot of water. It's not a very deep creek, but depending on the size of your child, that might depend on where it lands on their legs. But it is something to be aware of. There are ponds that are sort of nearby. They're not really on our property, but they are accessible. So when we are near a water source, we have a leader present very, very nearby. And then, of course, the dynamic risk assessment. So constantly looking for ways to prevent accidents from happening and, seeing if we need to change the environment. So when we are nurturing, we want to use conflict resolution steps. So we don't want to yell, we don't want to belittle, we don't want to do timeout, we don't tell somebody that they can't participate in an activity. Those are not how we teach positive communication. We teach by teaching. We teach by showing them what they should do, not what they shouldn't do. We teach them by giving them words in their vocabulary to use and building those communication skills versus just punishing them. So we want to use positive conflict resolution. So be proactive, take note of the social interactions, constantly be watching. If you're talking with a leader beside you because you're filling in your social time, it's going to be really hard to do that. So this is why we limit the social time. You want to be physically close to a child or a group of children, especially if they are concerned about social or safety situations. Remind the children to use gentle, respectful words when asking for what they want or what they need, and that hands are for working and playing, but not squeezing, pulling, pushing, or hitting. We want to redirect. So we redirect as need to a different activity and redirect until the group is calm, and then we start to communicate. So it's difficult to communicate and use that positive interaction to manage a situation if we are not calm. So first we must calm the children down, and maybe that's a time to take a break for a little while, get a drink of water, just take a breather and calm down for a minute, and then we can interact by encouraging to express your feelings. So remember, I feel, because, and I would like. And we can help to identify or name feelings for children that might not be able to do that. Then we compromise on a solution. So how can we fix this immediate situation? And then let's discuss how to prevent this from happening in the future. And finally, options for admission. So once again, talk with your children and ask them if they are interested in this type of environment. Even though you might be finding benefits to this yourself, make sure it is first beneficial to your child. They should be interested in social connection, so don't force them into that. You may decide to drop off because that is an option, and you also may decide to stay for a few weeks until you see how your child's going to interact. That's fine. You also may choose to just remain with them for the entire time. That's okay too. This is a 24-week commitment. So when you register, you're registering for the entire 24 weeks. We're not doing 6-week sessions or short sessions. This is for the full year, but we do need a minimum of 6 registered per session. Then you have to pay in full at the time of registration, but we may offer 6-month payment plans only through PayPal with an increased fee to cover what needs to happen in order to make that automatic payment plan available. The K-12 group will meet on Tuesdays at the MRC facility from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And for the Forest School group, they will meet on Mondays at MRC from 10 to 12. And we also have a McDonough session on Thursdays from 1 to 3. You can look for other admissions information and the registration and liability forms, as well as the community guidelines on the website. And if you want to tour the facility or you just want to sit down and really find out if this is good for your family, then just give me a call or send me a message and we can schedule a time to meet, or you can come out and look at MRC and see if this is a good fit for your family. We do offer rolling admissions as long as there is space available. So if you come into this a bit late, you can enroll midway through the year for a prorated fee. So if you have any questions, take a look at the website and then get in touch, and we hope you will join us for the new year.